Welcome to the second episode of the You're Already Here Though show, and I am a radio broadcast production presents.com. So the You're Already Here Though show, outside of rhyming, is about how you're already here, and my objective in sharing this information is to empower you to improve your presence process. Hey guys, holla, holla, holla. And in the first episode, I talked about where you think you might not need to be, and today I'm going to talk about things that bump you from the present. So, I'm going to scooch back a little. I have just one drawing today, and it'll go best that way. And maybe more if you have any questions or you're interested. Hello. Evis, my grandma always asks about you after she watched the show. She's always very curious for some reason about what you're doing. You must have made a big impression on her. Okay, so I encourage you to ask questions about how to apply this information to real life. So I recognize what I'm presenting is a little bit more abstract. I'm talking about being present, and I'm saying, well, these things are unreal. I'll let her know. It'll probably make her day. I'm talking about these things that are unreal, and yet you might have an experience that's like, yeah, girl, but is real to me. And so if you have something like that feels like resistance to applying these topics, or you're not sure how you would apply these topics to your life, just shout out. And if you don't want me to say your name in the broadcast, just say like anonymous, or like put the emoji that does this, and I'll know. Because none of the comments show in the playback. All right, so what bumps you from the present? Discomfort is one of them, one of the things that bumps you from the present. And as your mindfulness practice improves, you'll be able to sort out most of the sources of your discomfort. Oh man, I miss you so much. I gotta get back to, I heard that, sorry, this is off topic, but I heard it's real busy in the MIA, but I would love to come back. Okay, so discomfort bumps you from the present. In this little diagram, I have the past, the present, and then this little exclamation point. Until you have become exceptionally mindful, there are external things and internal things that are pinging you all the time and kind of knocking you off your high horse. And it can be super background. It could be a song lyric that you just catch the snippet of, and you don't even need to catch it consciously, just subconsciously, and it'll pull you back to middle school where you felt like you weren't enough, or it will remind you that you have an event coming up in 2 months and you don't know how you're going to pay for it, or there are these things that touch where you're sensitive and trigger your fear response. When you're afraid, you're uncomfortable and likely leave the present. If you're uncomfortable and if you're experiencing fear, you're already like not present. But what I'm talking about is more like you're not present because you're triggered, and then you're uncomfortable in that state and you go further from the present. And that's when we engage in behaviors that we know we shouldn't and don't really want to. So that could be something like spending a little bit more than you mean to, or eating more than you'd like, or leaving dishes in the sink that'll be a bitch to clean up later, or avoiding someone, or there are things that on some level you know don't serve you and are going to cause you greater problems later. But because you're so uncomfortable, anything that sort of masks or distracts you from it is welcome. So when I first started to ask questions around behavior in like 20 2015, I was really curious about why people did things and didn't do things in contrast to what they deeply wanted. And at that time, I was asking those questions really around fitness and nutrition habits. People with resources or time not able to pull themselves towards the behaviors that they know they need to do, or if they can't go towards it, going really far the other way. I was like, that's so curious. And I noticed, hey guys, hey. I noticed with myself too that there were things that I thought I should be doing and things I knew I probably shouldn't, but I didn't feel like I had control. And I think that's a really interesting thing to explore within yourself if you haven't kind of stepped outside of you and asked bigger questions. So usually when you're involved in a pattern like that, you're not asking, I don't want to say the most intelligent questions, but you're kind of afraid at your lack of control and likely embarrassed and a little bit guilty, or feel embarrassed and guilty or shameful. So the questions that you ask are more like, how am I not going to do this next time? And if that was a good question, like, most people wouldn't binge stuff, but that generally doesn't do it. There's something much deeper. And if you're just joining, what I'm talking about today is how you can get like bumped from the present through these different triggers. So I use the example of you're kind of like just trucking through your day, and you get a text message from somebody and you read it really fast and you interpret it to mean that they're not paying attention. Oh girl. Blush. It's not that advanced today, but I did start putting together a pile of pictures that I want to send you. Okay, so it can be something very subtle. So if, as a collective body of people, humanity, we're sort of like set to burn at a constant rate of like anxiousness and fear. If you pay attention to pretty much anything that's contemporary, so even like the media obviously, but a lot of film and television too has violence, has espionage, has, you know, like we're pretty much all the and our food does it to our bodies. So if you're eating things that aren't really, and most people are eating things that aren't really designed for the consumer as much as the shareholders, your body's almost always afraid. You're living in this constant state of like agitation. And part of what is also what's a part of that agitation are these ideas we've picked up about how we should be, how our life should look, what might happen later, what should have happened before. And so we're constantly in this state of like low grade fear in general. And then something will come and bump it, and it flares up and you get uncomfortable, because generally like what you're aware of is all kind of interconnected in a way that's too much for the mind to really process, and we'll simplify it to things that seem like either or, but generally we do that because we can't handle all the information. And so just even then we'll shut down before we even really consider how things might go. It's like just too much. It's overload, overwhelm. So you get triggered, you have your low grade fear burn, something bumps you that's personally threatening, and it doesn't have to be at a physical level. It can be something, like I said, really nostalgic, or something totally unreasonable, like, you know, is my haircut good enough or whatever. And it flares up with the fear that you have. And so in your present moment, you're already thinking about the thing that upset you, or you placed that agitation on something nearby. So in the example of being triggered by a song lyric that you weren't conscious of hearing, you might instead think, oh, my partner should have done this. Like, you'll place your agitation on whatever is closest to you in a way that you think makes sense. And this is how we create a lot of our problems. We'll take what we feel and we'll pick something to put it on, and we'll really focus on that thing. But maybe you're upset or scared about something over there, and it's instead showing up as you being focused on this. I just quit playing video games last week because they're pretty much programming fear, stress, and violence into me. Yeah, I'd say that. Even Super Mario Brothers, they've got those fireballs, and Zelda with the sword. But there's some classic games that might not be as stimulating or challenging on other levels. That might be fun to play with. Okay, so constant sort of fear, agitation, kind of like burning all the time, a personal trigger, application of some kind of meaning, which may or may not be related to the trigger. Sometimes you'll have people scared at work and they'll come home and have a problem with their partner, or vice versa. And so you feel something, you try to understand it, you try to think about it. Generally, it becomes overwhelming and you sort of eject further from the Excite Bike Nintendo. It's a great idea. You eject further from the moment by some kind of distraction or coping mechanism. And today I'm talking about choosing something that you know is kind of self-destructive. And that might be checking out and watching more, streamed shows, or it might be scrolling the social media. It might be something that on some level, and or you feel guilt or bad or some kind of thing later that this isn't right, and you keep doing it. So, does anyone know what I'm talking about? Where it's like, it doesn't, the way that I'm laying it out, it's kind of sequentially, and I'm clearly marking like the pieces of it. But when it's you and it's real life, it's kind of instantaneous. So it's not like you're like, I'm uncomfortable, I won't be able to figure that out, I should go on social media. It's more like, where's my phone? All of that kind of happens on the background. And then while you're there, you're like, oh, maybe not, I shouldn't be here, or just a little bit, or tomorrow I won't, or something. But it's too late. You're already, not too late, but it's like you're in it. You're detached from your present moment. And when we're looking at present momentness and about how it feels good, there's a difference between, I call it flash pan feels good, and like the true feels good. So true feels good like across time and space, like essentially that you're making a choice that has a return on investment. It's not the activity, it's the intention and the awareness. You could have a positive return on investment on any of the activities I listed if you interacted with them with intention and you chose them, or they were part of, like, you were conscious to your use of it. So there's nothing that's like blacklisted, there's nothing that's bad. And even if you're using it unconsciously, like, it's not bad. There is no absolute bad. And if one of the ways we jump from the present is getting all caught up and berating ourselves for what we've done that's bad, which is not doing anything. It takes you right out. So you have your present moment. You are uncomfortable in it, so uncomfortable, so overwhelmed that you engage in a distracting activity that has a negative return on investment. That's where we're at right now. When you notice that you're in the activity, or if you're on the cusp of taking on the activity, the first thing that I would recommend doing is make it okay. Start out by saying, honey, if you want to do that, you can. If you want to have all the Doritos, you can. If you want to watch another show, you can. Start out by saying yes to what you're about to do, even though you know you don't want to. By doing that, you kind of like open the door for you to see what you're doing. When you say no, it just pushes you further out of the moment because you're rejecting yourself, you're rejecting the choice, you're rejecting what you're doing. If you say yes to something, then you're consciously participating and you're stepping into your power. While you're doing the activity, no matter what it is, Oreos, trash TV, whatever the fuck it is, breathe and enjoy it. Try to taste what you're eating. Try to feel what you're watching. Try to really be present to what's happening. What's so cool about distractive type activities is they're not that cool whenever you're really there for them. You don't really like them unless, again, you're using them consciously. And so when you slow down and you're really there for it, you're able to gather more information, and that information ultimately adds up to change the context within which you make decisions. So the more present you are to the Ben & Jerry's pint, and the more present you are to how you feel after you eat it, the less likely you'll have it later because were aware, you were there for it, that it isn't what you thought it would be. We kind of idealize these different, distraction type things, even though we've got this like love-hate relationship. Oh, I really love it, but I shouldn't. I really love it, but I shouldn't. And that, that battle distracts you from the information is that like you really don't love it, and you'd probably like to do something else. Or if you do love it, you'd love it in a different ratio. So we have fear, personal trigger, discomfort, and then avoiding the discomfort through choosing some kind of distraction activity. And then as soon as you know that's about to happen, as soon as you're there, you say, baby, it's okay. It's okay, we're gonna play video games all day if you want. If you want to watch 17 more episodes, that's okay, we're gonna do it. You get on the same team as you and you start to be present to what you're doing. Breathe. Take yourself out of judgment. Start to let it be okay. And that soothes your system and brings you back down from the original trigger. And then you're here. You're here with what you're doing. And generally, like I said, when you're there with it, it's not quite what you think it is, and you really would rather not. But you don't have to push you out of those activities. You only have to practice becoming aware within them, and then naturally over time you will not do them. I have worked in behavior. This isn't a theory. That's like, I wonder if this will work. I've worked in behavior for years. I've done this with myself. I healed eating disorders with this. I healed a bunch of toxic relationships with this. I've healed spending with this. I've healed pretty much any issue I had through this because I tried everything else first. I tried damning myself, making it hard, creating barriers to it. But I'm smart and I'm determined, and if I want to do something, I'm going to figure out a way to do it. And so by embracing everything and make it really easy and loving for myself, what I started to do was repattern the safety and the acceptance that wasn't existing previously, that had contributed to the low grade fear and the triggers. So it's kind of like you unwire the triggers through your acceptance. And I stand beside this method, and if you're not sure how to apply it to your life, let me know and I will be happy. Just send me a DM, like a voice memo or a note, and I'll holler back. Okay, so this was a presentation about how to be, actually I think I did get that idea from somewhere else the other day. But this is a presentation about how to be more present. And I'm suggesting that you can be more present by becoming mindful to the ways that you're not, and then creating a safe environment for you to come back by consciously choosing whatever you are unconsciously choosing. If you are unconsciously choosing, and that means like you'd rather not, but you're doing it anyhow, spending more money on Amazon, say to yourself, okay, like, don't explain how or why you're gonna spend less later. Don't, make an excuse because you didn't buy something. Like, say nothing and just say, like, I'm choosing this. It's okay, I'm gonna choose this, and breathe and be present. And again, over time, that will start to make you feel more comfortable in what's happening. You'll become more aware, you'll have more information, and naturally you'll start to see how that plays into the other things that matter in your life, and it won't have the same draw. And so that fight that you have when you're uncomfortable, and you're going to those things won't exist anymore. And then when you have the trigger in that trigger cycle, you'll notice it, and rather than distract yourself away from it, you'll be able to be with the discomfort until it passes. And that's like the ultimate power move to the present, is when you're uncomfortable, when you have discomfort, fear, anger, sadness, don't run. Sit down in it, stand in it, and just breathe. From what I found with myself and with clients, that practice will help with overactive thinking. So like with overactive thinking, overeating, all these things, we try to attack the behavior, but the behavior is a symptom of wanting to not be present because it's uncomfortable. Any questions before I close today? I sort of ran through this material. I guess I was kind of excited, and also I wanted to do it under a short amount of time. So any feedback you have about what was useful, what could be more clear, is welcome. I have 3 more episodes-ish in the You're Already Here Though show, and then I'm not sure what I'm gonna focus on later, but I am open to topics that are valuable to you. It seems like, as I watch my data, I try to look at my insights. I assume that they're correct. They might not be, I don't know, but it seems like what resonates the most with people right now is how to manage things that are hard in their life. That's the stuff that gets saved the most. So that might be my next series, but again, open to topics. Thanks so much for coming. I really appreciate it. My best to you on the other side of the world. Getting bored. Hey, everyone, have a lovely evening, day. Thanks for coming, Randy. All right, good day.